Stop me if you've heard this one before. Smug elitist punk that hates everything except girl bosses, climate change, Barack Obama, men who think they're women, boys in girls' sports, drag queen shows.
And that, my friends, is what we like to call in the business Disney magic.
Abortion and other leftist horrors shows his utter disdain for those deplorables in rural America by taking a beloved franchise, deconstructing it, and digesting it until out comes on the other end a self-important, pretentious pile of TV show.
Because this is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable margin.
Now, I know it's a bit too on the nose and
Beta!
but welcome to Modern Hollywood, Damon Lindelof, and the new series on HBO, Lanterns. And yes, this is about DC Comics hero Green Lantern, but we all know that the word green is just so stupid. Said no one ever, except this guy.
It's called Lanterns because we all agreed that the green was stupid.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
On that note of childish intellect, I'll make this review short and sweet. Hal Jordan is a washed-up lantern and ready for retirement. He's a drunken slob and has a bad attitude and hates everything, but he's tasked with training his replacement, Jon Stewart. Only their training is cut short when a murder takes place at a local high school football game, so Kyle Chandler, the actor who plays Hal, can relive his glory days.
What kind of a man am I? Because Friday night,
Hal is convinced that this crime has been committed by aliens, and therefore, the Green Lantern Corps needs to investigate. But girl boss number one isn't having any of it. But not to be deterred, Hal needs to do the obvious thing, and he has to use this story about aliens as an allegory for immigration.
How about we both want to protect the planet from anybody not born on it?
So the two go off to investigate. And that's when the moody, really edgy, cool stuff begins. Hal and John bring in a guy for questioning, but evidence suggests that the guy is actually an alien. And we get some exposition that reveals that hunch to be true, including woke lectures about Barack Obama.
That's it. As a rural Nebraskan, that's the breadth of your opinion of Barack Hussein Obama.
He's the 44th president. He followed George W. Bush. There's some controversy surrounding his birth certificate.
Lectures about colonialism.
This land we're on right now, it was Kiowa, then Sioux, but across the ocean, boats were coming. Colonization is ugly from any angle, but it is particularly bleak if you're the one getting colonized.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Lectures about climate change and lectures about poverty.
And learn the arcane rules of pointless contests involving balls that somehow captivate more attention than the deteriorating atmosphere or the hunger of its least fortunate people.
And at this point, really savvy and perceptive viewers are thinking to themselves, really, bro? About the least brave thing you can do is just parrot progressive talking points in our woke era. But of course, that doesn't stop the brave and breathless people in Hollywood from doing exactly that. But you might also be thinking something else. About the dumbest thing you can do on top of regurgitating woke talking points is to write yourself as one of the characters. But that's exactly what Damon Lindelof apparently did in this Alien. And if I am correct, we might have cracked a much bigger case than what's being portrayed on this TV show, because we might now be onto evidence that Damon and all of his friends in Hollywood are aliens. If only it were true, dear viewer, because instead of kicking those guys out of our planet, we're left with moral lectures on the most insipid issues of our society today. And of course, praise for sexual deviancy.
You say Christ is Lord! Get out!
Because it turns out, while it is deeply offensive to make jokes about Barack Obama, it's perfectly fine to sleep with another man's wife, which is exactly what Jon Stewart did, and the husband finds out about it, and this is what he has to say.
Nothing better than eating off another man's grill. Beta!
Leave it to mainstream Hollywood to get basic morality totally backwards. And with that in mind, you should know that no, this series isn't for kids, and it isn't suitable for them even beyond the adultery I just mentioned, which was overlooked by a beta husband. It also has foul language and themes that kids would better be served by totally skipping.
The old-fashioned way, I sure did an interview for it.
Oh, maybe you should have.
Good Christ, he really is full of himself.
But I wouldn't blame you for getting excited and thinking this might be the opportunity for Hollywood to redeem themselves and create a family-centered drama that is well written. After all, you were pitched a series about a beloved comic book hero standing for truth, inspired by one of the greatest recent TV shows, True Detective. But did you get that delivered in this series?
No. 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 No.
Any optimism that you have should have been washed away the moment you see Damon Lindelof writing this drama. Might I remind you that he is also the guy that is behind the disastrous finale of Lost, and perhaps one of the worst and most gratuitously disgusting comic book adaptations for TV ever, The Watchmen. You may be like myself and you never saw the Watchmen series, but let me assure you that its reputation precedes itself. And that series included gratuitous gay sex scenes, totally unnecessary racially charged narratives, and also a bit of gaslighting about the so-called Tulsa Race Massacre. And I bet you'll never guess that Damon's inability to achieve any original thinking is on display in that story because he makes white Southerners the bad guys. God forbid these guys ever do any research whatsoever on the actual history of things and realize that just a few months earlier, a white teenager was lynched in the same way that a black teenager was lynched, which created this drama. And we're all aware at this point in time that you really can't trust what you hear from the mainstream media or the series of events that you have been given without any research. And you shouldn't trust what you're hearing from Damon, at least when he gives us his interpretation of history. And of course, this kind of storytelling shows up in Lanterns when Hal and John meet the aforementioned beta husband that has no problem with his wife committing adultery with John. And he is, of course, a cult militia leader because that's what Southern whites do for fun. They burn crosses and join extremist groups. Said only dorks in Hollywood. But bringing this eye-rolling adventure to a close. With the alien in custody and his identity found out, he self-destructs, like this show. Because the end of this show brings us 10 years in the future, and Jon Stewart is back at the original location of the crime, where he scales the football stadium steps to see his mentor frozen and shot in the head. That's right, it took them all of one episode to destroy one of the most beloved characters in all of DC.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Now, there's much more to this episode that we could get into, but I found it so annoying that I just don't really care about discussing it further. I figure most of you anyway are watching this to see two things. One, is this a piece of entertainment that provokes thought and human betterment? Can it be useful for developing and understanding universal truths, the good and the beautiful? Or you're looking for help to see if this is suitable for your kids? On both accounts, the answer is no. Unfortunately, this is yet another modern drama in a long line of media created by self-important woke progressives who think there's nothing outside the bubble they created for themselves. And as I close this episode, forgive me if I wax a little poetic and remind you that part of the problem with modern progressivism is that it follows the path of Nietzsche in rejoicing over the death of God. But it lacks all of the intellectual depth of Nietzsche, because he wondered what a world would look like if God truly died. And he concluded that if we get rid of God, which is an act that is too big for all of us, that we then would become responsible for backfilling our lives with all of the benefits and all of the goodness that religion and believing in God provides to a society. So here we would be with blood on our hands from the death of God, and we would have to find something to take his place. In despair, the madman warned society and said we should tread carefully. But of course, fools run where angels fear to tread. And modern progressives celebrate the death of God, but forget to understand that if there is nothing more holy and nothing bigger than themselves, then it only leaves them with one final conclusion. They can only produce art as useless and woke as they are. Thanks so much for watching. If this review was beneficial to you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoyed it enough, you can also click that little link on the screen to watch another episode that YouTube is sure you'll like. But most importantly, go with God.